You know, the tragedy, the great tragedy of our times in our societies are people who can't read. People who have minimal reading ability, because they're shut out.
There's no doubt as to the importance of reading to society. Hi, I'm Rebecca Brayton and welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're speaking with prize-winning author Yann Martel about the connection between politics and reading.
We live in a literate society. We live in a complicated society, and we need tools to understand that. And to me, one of the key tools in understanding life is a book, and it's specifically, not any book, a literary book. In other words, a work of fiction, whether it's a novel or a play or a poem. And I cannot see how you can be a thinking person who is head of a government without having access what fiction can give you. It makes you be someone else, somewhere else, during the duration of a book. And that's very, very useful. It's a way of getting beyond your own, the confines of your own narrow life.
How would you think this would affect the running of a country?
The overall effect over time tends to bring down blinkers, tends to increase your tolerance. So for example, you read a book on the Holocaust, you read Primo Levi's If This Is a Man. It tends to increase your sympathy to the plight of Jews under the Nazis. You read a book on slavery, it tends to increase your sympathy for the historical injustice done to African Americans. Well, if you keep on reading year after year, you become more tolerant, you become more open, you become more sympathetic. Anyone who chooses to do that, I think that will generally be the effect. But of course, it all depends on the personal will of the reader. George Bush, for example, had this competition for a while with Karl Rove about reading. So he definitely reads, but I think he read with a certain bent to confirm his vision.
Tell us about the premise of what is Stephen Harper reading.
We have a Prime Minister here in Canada who seemingly does not read books. Now that's an assumption I'm making based on his actions, on his persona, on his policies. And so I, for the last 2.5 years, have been sending him a book every 2 weeks with a lecture talking about that book, talking about the author, the book, and thoughts that that book led me to think. Hopefully try to establish a dialogue, or at least make a point. People have dismissed this as, what does it matter what he reads? It's a personal matter, sort of like his religion is personal matter, or his sexuality is something personal. It's not quite true that, and everyone recognizes that. If you met a politician who said to you, my favorite book is Mein Kampf, the hair on your head would curl, or if someone said, my favorite book is Das Kapital, that would tell you sort of where that person would come from economically. Books do sort of determine the kind of mind someone has. Not necessarily, but they do give you a hint.
Would a recommended reading list be different for a Liberal Prime Minister versus a Conservative?
It's not a question of just sending books that I like, nor is it a question for readers of reading only books that they're comfortable with. The good thing about going to school, for example, university or high school, is you tend to read books that you wouldn't have read on your own, that you wouldn't have picked up. To me, the key ages for books is when we're young, high school, university. That's when we're open, and that's when books really form us. And then when we retire, the people that we miss, especially with men, is the middle-aged men. And the problem is, middle-aged men rule the world. If boys don't read, they become men who don't read, and they're the ones, we don't know where they get their ideas. Reading a book is a way of dreaming. If you don't have dreams, how do you maneuver reality? Where do you get the ideas to change reality if not from dreams?
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.